What is going on, guys? It's Sloppy Saturdays back at you guys with another video. And today we are going over this NFL running back draft class. This NFL running back draft class is absolutely ridiculous. This might be the best I have ever seen going into an NFL draft. I mean, we're talking about 10 guys, 10 plus guys that could eventually be NFL lead backs. Now, I think having these many running backs are going to create guys to fall back a little bit, which is kind of crazy. I'm going to talk about two or three guys that I think should not be going where they're mocked at going. And I think this is a good time to have an influx of running backs as well, because the NFL back position, let's be honest, it has been really just disrespected over the last couple of years. But you saw this year how much of an impact Saquon Barkley had on his team, how much of an impact Derrick Henry had on his team, how much of an impact Josh Jacobs had on his team. So I think it's going back to being respected, and I think a lot of teams are going to end up with steals just due of the influx of talent at this position. Now let's get right into it. First off, we're going to go off with some honorable mentions. I love DJ Giddens. I love RJ Harvey, two guys that just didn't make the list. And I also want to talk about Cam Scatterboo for a second. We're talking about the second best running back in college football last year not being on this list. And I'm going to tell you why. Honestly, I don't think Cam Scatterboo can succeed as a lead back in the NFL. I don't even think it's possible. That's why I don't have him on this list. But I think if a team uses Cam Scatterboo in the right way, he could definitely be successful in the NFL. I mean, we're talking about a guy that could really excel in short yardage situations due to his frame. Not only that, I think this guy could possibly excel as a fullback to a team that values fullback and values using him in that way. He's a great blocker and he's a great catcher for his size. So again, I think Cam Scatterboo could excel in a role, but I don't think it's going to be an every down lead back type of role. Now, getting that out of the way, let's get into our list. Our 10 running backs that can possibly be lead backs in the NFL. At number 10, we are going with Jordan James. Now, Jordan James comes in at number 10. He did have a great season last year. We're talking about over 1,200 yards, 15 touchdowns. We're talking about 26 receptions for 200 yards. He was great last season. Now, the problem I have with Jordan James is we haven't seen him in a lead back role for enough time, in my opinion. We saw him this year in Oregon, and Oregon was the number one team in the country for a large amount of weeks, majority of the college football season. So it was very difficult to see how great of a back Jordan James was, just because of how much was in this offense. I mean, we're talking about a offense with two NFL receivers, an NFL tight end, an NFL quarterback, probably the best offensive line in college football. So again, how much of it was Jordan James breaking these runs? How much of it was the blocking? Now, I do really like Jordan James. I do really like his ability to receive. The only thing I don't really like him is his acceleration. Again, we're talking about holes his Oregon team opened up, and I think he does kind of lack acceleration. But Jordan James, again, could be a guy with a lot of upside. It's just whether you want to go off really one season, because you got to look last year, he was behind Bucky Irving, even though he did have a nice sample size behind an NFL back and Bucky Irving. You're talking about 700 yards, 11 touchdowns. Again, wasn't a small sample size at all. We've seen Jordan James as the second back. We've seen him as the lead back, even though he did kind of have a split this year with Noah Whittington as well. Again, Jordan James just falls in at 10 for me, again, due to a lack of sample size. And again, 1 year on the number one team in the country for a while. Again, don't really know what to make of it. Again, I do think this guy has the ability to be a lead back, but with everything going around him, he's at number 10 for me. Now going into number 9, we have Damian Martinez. If you would have asked me in the beginning of the year, I would have said Damian Martinez was going to fall way higher in this list. A little bit of a disappointing season for Damian Martinez. Really, his season last year, his sophomore season, really was his best season. He really helped DJ Ugalele a lot. I mean, we're talking about a guy that was the lead back in the offense, the main feature guy in the offense at Oregon State. He transfers to Miami, which I thought was going to be a home run for him. And it turned out it really wasn't. I thought it was going to be a home run because of Cam Ward. And I thought this Miami team was on the rise. Miami was disappointing this season. Like you're talking about a team that we thought was going to run the ACC at one point and didn't. And Damian Martinez was pretty disappointed. I mean, he had less yards in Miami, which we thought was a way better offense than Oregon State. Again, was it because he wasn't the featured guy? You had a lot of guys in that offense. You had Xavier Restrepo, Elijah Arroyo, and others. And you had Cam Ward, who was throwing the ball 40 times a game. So Damian Martinez comes in at 9 because, again, I thought this guy was going to explode off the scene. He showed the ability to be a lead back and handle the offense at Oregon State. And then when he goes to Miami, again, not as impressive. His yards per carry was pretty low. But again, I like his athleticism. I like his ability as a downhill runner. He does lack receiving threat work and ability to pick up blitzes, in my opinion. But again, Damian Martinez, a guy that a team may want to take a shot on in the later rounds. I thought he left a lot on the table this year. Going into number 8, we're going with Dylan Sampson. Now, Dylan Sampson, in terms of college backs last year, you could argue he was a top 3 back. But for me, he falls at number 8, and there's a couple of reasons. Now, I have a friend that's probably going to watch this video that's going to definitely give me some for putting Dylan Sampson this low. Dylan Sampson, I was very impressed this year. I mean, this is a guy that really does not have much of a sample size other than this year. First year breaking 1,000 yards, but we're talking about a guy with over 1,400 yards and then added in an extra 20 receptions for 143 yards receiving. Dylan Sampson really took the workload for this Tennessee team. A lot of people thought that Nico Iumeiulava was really going to excel and take a hold of his offense. He really never did, and Dylan Sampson was dependent on to be the lead back, the focal point of this offense, which I thought was very impressive. Again, we're talking about a guy with over 1,500 yards. My problem is with Dylan Sampson is I think he's a little too small to bring this workload into the NFL. I don't think he's going to be necessarily a guy that's going to have top end carries. I think he could be a lead back in the NFL. But again, his ability to have an intense workload at his size, I don't think is possible. And then also, I think he leaves a lot to desire on the receiving end. Again, I think on off-target throws, he really isn't the best receiving back in this NFL draft class. So again, his size, his lack of ability to receive is why he's really at 8. And again, his sample size. This was the only year that he really took over his offense. But again, I thought it was very, very impressive what he did with this Tennessee team, a team that lacked receivers, a team with Nico Iumeiulava that didn't get off to the hottest start. He was the focal point. And again, I think he can be a lead back in the NFL. Just think his size, again, is going to lack him from having, maybe 30 carries in a game. Like, I don't think he's ever going to reach that top end of carries in an NFL game, but do think he could be a NFL lead back. At number 7, we have Devin Neal. Devin Neal is just completely underrated. Devin Neal has, now we're getting to guys with a little more sample size. We're talking about 3 seasons with over 1,000 yards. He's in a solid conference with Kansas. Again, I just think he's very underrated because, again, he played for Kansas, but he is one of the best running backs in this draft class. And that's really what's holding him back. But if you look on tape, he really doesn't have that much weaknesses. We're talking about a guy that, again, can be a downhill runner. He's a very good receiving back as well. The only thing about Devin Neal that I don't like is kind of off-schedule plays and ability to really get himself open when the first thing doesn't work. His cuts really aren't the best. But again, when you're talking about sample size with Devin Neal, and again, he was on a team with Jalen Daniels this year that we thought was going to absolutely explode and didn't. And he was the focal point really of this Kansas team of all 3 years. I think his ability to run the ball, his ability to receive the ball, this guy could definitely be a lead back in the NFL. He comes in at number 7, and this is really where we start getting into guys that I'm 100% confident that can be lead backs. Getting into number 6, we are going with Ollie Gordon. Now, if you asked me in the beginning of the year, Ollie Gordon, I thought this guy was going to be the number 1 running back in this draft class. We're talking about a guy, not the last season, the season before, that absolutely exploded. I mean, you're talking about over 1,700 yards rushing, 330 yards receiving on 39 receptions. He hits the lead mark in receptions out of anybody in this class in a season. He's a great downhill runner. The issue is with Ollie Gordon, we're talking about situation, and situation was not the best. We're talking about a below average offensive line, a below average quarterback carousel. He did have 2 good receivers in this offense, but again, without a consistent quarterback play and without consistent offensive line play, how great are you going to be? I really don't think Ollie Gordon has fell off, lost the gear at 21 years old. That's not what I think. I think it's the situation, and maybe didn't come in as fresh as he did last year. But Ollie Gordon, I think a team is really getting at a discount. And with his size, he could 100% be a lead back in the NFL. I absolutely love Ollie Gordon. I was thinking about putting him at 5, honestly. I think you're just getting a ton of value with him. But I got to put him on at 6 due to the drop-off of production. But Ollie Gordon, absolutely ridiculous. I mean, we're talking about a guy that had the second best season in college football out of anybody on this list compared to Asher Jetty last year. Ollie Gordon's season in 2023 was the second best season we have on this list. Ollie Gordon comes in at number 6. Again, maybe should have transferred, maybe should have went to a better situation after last year. He decided not to. That's why he drops, because it's below average offensive line and quarterback carousel. I do not think Ollie Gordon fell off, lost a year at 21. I think that's ridiculous to say. Coming in at number 5, we have Caleb Johnson. Caleb Johnson, he comes in at number 5 due to lack of sample size. Again, we're really only talking about 1 year of college production, which was this year, but it was elite, and it was in an Iowa offense that really did not have much. I mean, you're talking about K. McNamara, not the best college football quarterback, no really receiving threats. And we know Iowa, they've really been into defense and really low scoring games. Caleb Johnson gave them a spark on offense this year. It goes to a most improved player in college football. Caleb Johnson has to be up there. We're talking about over 1,500 yards, and then we're talking about 22 receptions for 188 yards and 2 touchdowns. Caleb Johnson was unreal. I love his ability as a downhill runner. The only thing I have as a problem with Caleb Johnson, again, his hands really aren't the best to me. And not only that, with Caleb Johnson, I do think he's going to have a hard time in third down pass protection. I think that's going to be a problem. But Caleb Johnson, with his size, with his burst, I think he could 100% be a lead back. I think he should definitely be a guy you guys target. I mean, this is a dream running back class for Dynasty. Caleb Johnson, great NFL back with his size. I really think he could be a lead back in the NFL and handle an NFL workload. Coming in at number 4 is Quinshon Judkins. I absolutely love Quinshon Judkins. I love the moves he made in his college football career. And it was very tough for me with these Ohio State running backs. I was going back and forth. Travion Henderson, Quinshon Judkins, Travion Henderson, Quinshon Judkins. Who do I put at 4? Who do I put at 3? I decided to put Quinshon Judkins at 4. I am absolutely splitting hairs, but Quinshon Judkins I absolutely love. I think he's the perfect modern-day running back. I think his ability to receive is absolutely unreal. I think his shiftiness is great as well. And I think he could run downhill too. This guy could really do it all. I love how his college football career went. And we're talking about a guy at Ole Miss that was the lead back, showed that he could really produce as a lead back. Then he goes to Ohio State, and I think it was the complete right move as well. Obviously, they won a national championship, but not only that, he got less carries and less of a workload, so he's more fresh going into the NFL. He showed that he could do it all. He showed that he could be a receiving back, sometimes be a secondary back, sometimes be a lead back. I absolutely love him. I think he could do it all. He's definitely going to be an NFL lead back. If this is a guy that people get in the third round, I think that's an absolute steal. I think Quinshon Judkins, again, just really played a numerous amount of roles in his college football career. Played in the SEC, played in the Big Ten, played on all contenders. I think Quinshon Judkins has probably the best profile when you talk about a career and just the different amount of roles he was able to provide. I absolutely love it. Now going into his partner in crime, Travion Henderson at number 3. This guy reminds me a lot of Ezekiel Elliott. Again, maybe it's because that Ohio State uniform, but I love really what Travion Henderson is able to do in pass protection. I think that's honestly his best trait, and honestly will get him on the field in the most amount of ways. Because if you could pass protect, you could be on the field in all 4 downs. He isn't the best receiving back, but he definitely can receive as well. That can make him a 4-down type of running back. And not only that, again, as a downhill runner, he's unreal. I think his acceleration is great as well. And again, I love the move that him and Quinshon Judkins made, splitting the backfield. Again, getting less carries instead of a full workload going into the NFL. That's going to leave teams wanting them a lot because, again, they didn't have the full amount of workload that a lot of these guys have. They might be a little fresher. And it's very odd that 2 guys that split a backfield are able to retain their draft capital. Because, again, usually one guy wins out, but these guys were so talented and complement each other so well, they both won out of the situation. Not only were they national champions, but their draft stock remained where it is. Travion Henderson, again, my number 3 back, but him and Quinshon Judkins were really splitting hairs. Coming into number 2, we're going with Omarion Hampton. Omarion Hampton, absolutely ridiculous, absolutely insane. I can't say enough about him. We talked about him in our last video, so I'm not going to even glaze him anymore. But we're talking about a guy with almost 4,000 total yards in 2 seasons. We're talking about him with Drake May, where he really excelled. And we're talking about him without Drake May this year. And in an offense, in an ACC that was honestly pretty bad. And he just excelled even more to be the second best running back in the college football season. I think he's unreal. Again, this guy showed he could be a lead back. He's going to be a lead back in the NFL. This guy is a first round NFL talent without a doubt. And a team may be lucky and scoop him in the second round just because of the Ashton Jeanty hype. Again, Ashton Jeanty definitely deserves it, but this guy is a first round running back as well, and he's not far off than Ashton Jeanty. I could possibly even see him being better than Ashton Jeanty in the pros. Again, I would take Ashton Jeanty before him, but Omarion Hampton is a guy that's a first round running back, and he probably won't even go there. And at number one, we're going to Ashton Jeanty. Again, I can't speak enough about Ashton Jeanty, a guy that can do it all. He's getting comps to Alvin Kamara, which I just don't agree with. I think they're completely different running backs. Again, Ashton Jeanty can receive the ball. Again, more of a downhill runner than Alvin Kamara. This is a guy that's going to go in the top 10 of picks probably. Do I agree with him going to the top 10 of picks? Talent-wise, top 10 player, no doubt. But again, I just named 10 running backs that could possibly be lead backs. Again, when you're in the top 10, you probably need a little more than a running back. I wouldn't pick him in the top 10 if I was one of those teams. But talent-wise, and if you're just a team that wants a surefire, great player, I understand it. Take Ashton Jeanty in the top 10. Me personally, I wouldn't do it. But Ashton Jeanty, absolutely ridiculous. One of the best running backs we have seen in this 2000s era, 2000, 2010, 2020. He has to fall within the top 5 NFL draft prospects at running back. Absolutely ridiculous. One of the most historic seasons we have ever seen. A guy that can do it all. Let me stop glazing. Ashton Jeanty at number one. That wraps up this video. I mean, we're talking about 10 plus NFL lead backs that could be possible in this NFL draft class. Again, a dream scenario for fantasy, a dream scenario for dynasty. All my friends that are in my dynasty league, please don't watch this video. Don't want to tip my pitches. And we are